Good day. This is SmallBizDavid. You haven't seen me around for a while. Actually, this is the first YouTube HOA that I've done in probably 6 or 7 months, Barbara. It's been that long, and
Oh my goodness.
the technology has definitely changed from the last time I did it. And you know better than anybody how I've been struggling with putting all of that together to make things happen today. But you know what? My challenges as a small business owner and what I do for a living aren't any different than other small business owners and what they need to do to make their businesses run. And I am very happy and pleased and honored to have today probably my oldest live streaming friend. When I say oldest, I don't mean necessarily an age.
Thank you so much.
in length of service. Barbara and I did our first live streaming event in another technology, probably in 2008. And I had just started reading Barbara's daily email, which is the first thing I read any day when I get to my computer. And I think it's coming at 4 o'clock in the morning now on my computer, whenever. And I read it. And so I said, I really need to meet this person because she gets my day started with business ideas. And did a little bit of research on Barbara, and Barbara has been called America's #1 small business tax expert. And I guess the reason for that, Barbara, is because is this the 16th or 17th year that you have done this?
Actually, it's closer to 25 years. It's about 23 years, I think, now.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not giving you enough
age, but that's about it.
I want to ask you how old you were when you started writing, but it is. And let me tell a little story about the book and how you motivated me one year. It was probably about 5 years ago, and the objective of our hangout, our live streaming, was going to be to talk about the book. And you had said something in your daily email, or of course, what's the first thing I read on the first day of every month, Barbara?
You read my newsletter.
I read your newsletter. That it's been wonderful to see. It gets better and better all the time. I mean, you've made some changes over the years, and it's just. There's so much information, and that's what you are all about, is providing good business information. And I think nothing gets harder to a small business owner, a small business person, than taxes. So about 5 years ago, we were talking, and I said, you know what I'm going to do this year, Barbara, just by talking to you and reading the book and getting ideas and some of the things you've thrown out, I am going to buy some software. And for the first time ever, I'm going to do a first draft of my own business taxes. I had never done it before. You know, I just like most people probably just give it over to their CPA or their accountant and say, you know, do it, do a return for me. But I said, you know what? I want to learn more about what is really going on with my business. And so I went through the return. I used your book as a reference book. And when I came to some keywords on the return, I went to the index, and I found out where you were explaining and giving some hints. So I actually produced my own tax return. Didn't submit it. I wasn't that confident yet. And in that year, I gave it to my CPA, and all he then did was audited my return. And I don't know if he made 1 or 2 changes along the way, and he only charged me for that time. He didn't charge me, I say myself probably about 65% of my bill with my accountant because I took that. So thank you for that, Barbara. But the other thing I'd like to talk about, and you've heard me say it many, many times, I think I paid less for this book this year, Barbara, than I've ever paid for it. That's kind of strange. I don't know. Well, it was under $20.
Amazon's giving good discounts.
Yes. So I like to say this every year. It's the best $20 investment I make in my business because all I need to do is open one page and get one good idea that Barbara has shared with us. And it's paid for itself in the first 10 minutes that I get it. So let's talk a little bit about the book this year. You told me you added 2 chapters this year that you didn't have.
I added 2 chapters and an appendix. Yeah, the chapters I added, one has to do with penalties because penalties are now, many of them get adjusted for inflation, and just the penalties can really hit you that you don't even think about. So I just wanted to collect all the potential penalties that you could have with respect to your small business and taxes in one place, and explain them and what you could do about them in terms of minimizing or avoiding them. For example, just asking for an abatement, and you can get the IRS to waive your penalties the first time 100%. So people don't know that, and that's very underutilized. So that's one thing. And the other chapter I added was about working with a tax professional, giving guidance on which type of tax professional is best suited for you, when to use a tax professional, and how to work effectively with them, because they're often key advisors to your business, and the money that you spend on this advice can really save you much more in terms of saving you taxes and avoiding penalties.
And I read in your books a very strong point that you make. The purpose of the book is not to make a tax professional out of me, out of the small business owner who is reading the book. The book is there for information, and maybe you want to challenge. I mean, a good CPA is going to know, I hope they're going to
know everything in the book. But I think for the business owner, the point of the book is to make you sensitive or aware of the fact that the business decisions you make throughout the year have tax consequences, and because of the different tax treatment of the decisions you make. For example, buying or leasing a car, or taking on an employee versus an independent contractor. So to understand the tax implications of those decisions, and that's the purpose of the book.
Earlier this week, as I was thinking about our discussion today, Barbara, I came up with a question, and I want to ask, I don't know that I've ever really asked you this question before, but why does the IRS, when we are taking a mileage deduction for use of our car, why does that number change every year? Sometimes up, sometimes it goes down.
Well, it's an interesting question because the IRS has never divulged the formula it uses to compute.
But you know what the formula is.
No, but I do know that it does factor in the price of gasoline.
Yes, that was
cheaper this year than it was last year. Therefore, the rate went down. It went down again in 2016, 2017, down again. Now, and I know this for a fact because a number of years ago, when the price spiked tremendously, remember, went up to $148 a barrel or something in July, the IRS changed the rate mid-year and had 2 rates for the year, for mileage up the first 6 months and mileage the second 6 months. So it's clearly a big factor in the IRS mileage rate, but it's not the only factor.
And sure, it just gives them justification to go up or down based upon the price of gas. I guess long term, we're willing to take less of a deduction if the cost of gas is cheaper. I think. I
think so. I think we'd all be happy with that.
Although I noticed just in the last week a little spike in gas prices in Ohio.
Gas prices all over, and the predictions are that they're going to not go down dramatically. So We have to be
And who knows
prepared.
what's going to happen when our new president takes office in a couple weeks.
We don't know. The thing about the mileage, we're talking about it, and maybe for you and for me, the mileage rate is only for our driving our personal vehicle for business. But many small businesses have significant mileage, gasoline usage. They do deliveries, or they get deliveries and may have to pay surcharges on those deliveries. And so the cost of gasoline is no small thing.
Yes. Wow. I think about that every time I don't drive a car anymore. I'm a bus person now. And on my way to a spot that I go to every day, there's a small business owner, and I've watched his business grow. It's a janitorial cleaning service, and he's got 20 vehicles in a parking lot, and he's got to keep those vehicles filled with gas, and so he can go out and do his various contract jobs.
Exactly.
So let's I want to just go down real quickly and go through the parts of the book, and each time I talk about a part, if you could give me the highlights of that chapter, then we'll go back and if you would maybe give, and I ask you to do this every year, and I don't give you time to prepare for it, but 3 to 5 of the most important things or changes or something that we need to be thinking about, because right now, aren't we starting to think about doing our taxes for last year? So we'll go through that exercise. Part 1 of the book is about organization, and I think your comment there was basically that from a small business perspective, it's information that is helpful to all of us.
Exactly. One of the things that we should keep an eye on, we talk about business organization, meaning what's your form of business? Are you incorporated? Are you an S corporation? Are you a limited liability company? And we really need to keep an eye on what's happening with tax reform that may impact our decisions about how we set up our business. And perhaps up until now, it's the past 20 years or so, it's been more favorable to be an S corporation than a C corporation, but that could flip if they cut the corporate tax rates dramatically and don't have a similar cut on the rates that pass-through owners pay on their personal returns.
Isn't that a part of the agenda of our new president to be?
Exactly. So that's my point, that we do need to keep an eye on that. Nothing, I think, will happen. The laws could change immediately, but I don't expect them to take effect immediately, meaning that we'll all have time to digest what the tax changes will be and then make decisions for our businesses. Okay,
part 2 of your book is pretty standard from year to year, but there's probably I'm sure there's new laws that factor in, but business income and losses.
Right, reporting income and losses. And basically, as you point out, there aren't dramatic changes. There are little changes here and there. The key point, I think, for some people who may be listening, there's a growing segment of the sharing economy, the gig economy, people who are either making a full-time livelihood through Uber and Airbnb and such, or maybe doing it just as a part-time endeavor, and they need to recognize that they're getting an income and they got to report this. And I think this is like it may not be the same mindset for people who are in that particular area of making money, but they need to recognize that it's a business just like any other business and have to treat it accordingly.
Your choice of 2 businesses were fantastic, because they are 2 of the most dynamic business models, small business models, I have seen, obviously making great play of people being connected to the internet and using technology. Those 2 companies use technology as well as, if not better than anybody, except maybe Amazon.com. Have you gotten your first drone delivery of something yet? You know, one of
No,
these
I don't
years.
think we're going to be. We're not. I'm not in the where I live. It's not the forefront of development. So I'm
I was
on
gonna
the
s-
fringe here.
I was going to say, of all these years that we've been talking about this book, you have never sent me an autographed copy of the book. I want an autographed copy of 2018, and maybe it'll be time you could drone it to me.
Maybe. There you go.
Okay. Part 3, business deductions and credits, probably pretty much the same as incomes and losses.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And there are changes from year to year, new things to take note of, and there may be new breaks that you can benefit from. One of the key changes, for example, for 2016, are small businesses, especially startups, in R&D. And there's a research and development credit. There's a research credit, but you may not be making any money. You just started and you're doing all this. And so there's a new break that allows you to take the credit instead of against your income taxes. You don't have any revenue, you don't have any profits. What's the point? You can take it part up to a certain limit against your employment taxes, against the Social Security portion of the employer that the employer pays. And so that's a really good break for businesses that fall into that category.
You know, you made me think about something, and we talked about it one year, that, and it's probably happening more and more often now with so many baby boomers who need some additional revenue stream to their lives. And so they take their passion in their life, and quite often it's a hobby. And then you made the point very strongly a couple of years ago that the IRS, when they're evaluating a business, they say, is that a business or is that a hobby? And
well, that comes up when you're reporting losses. If your expenses are greater than your income, that could raise eyebrows. If you're reporting profits, they're happy.
Oh, they love it. They want more money. You're right. It's if you've got losses, and maybe it's not a fully, I don't want to use the word legitimate because it's not going to be illegitimate, but you know, it's you got to report what the facts are.
Yeah, and you have to, if you are developing a hobby into a business, if that's something that, as you indicate, which is very common, you have to treat your activity like a business, keeping separate bank accounts, separate records, having a business plan, working with experts. It's not mandatory to be profitable, but many of the biggest Fortune 500 companies report losses many times. So just having losses doesn't mean it's a hobby, but if the IRS questions your return, you want to make sure that you can demonstrate that you have a profit motive.
Okay, and then part 4, and you've added some chapters to part 4, tax planning for your small business. I mean, that's what really the meat of things. Yeah,
this has a lot of basic strategies and suggestions and thoughts. For example, I have one chapter on multi-state. So if you conduct activities in more than one state, what does that mean to you? If you have a sideline business, what does that mean to you? Just year-end planning, I have a whole chapter on that. And as I indicated earlier, working with a tax pro is a new chapter there.
How long when will you start working on 2018's book?
Well, I'm working on the supplement because a free supplement gets posted in February. And so the free supplement updates everything that happened since September to February in terms of legislation. It was a great piece of small business legislation in December. And so that all that information will be in the supplement. And then once I do that, then I'll turn to the next edition.
Okay, well, as you probably guessed, we were going to talk about something today because we talk about it every time that we have the opportunity, and that's the Affordable Care Act, and Well, what impact has it had on small business? Number one would be the first part of the question. Second part of the question would be, with a new new party in political power, have stated very clearly that they want to dismantle it, whatever that means. It may be more difficult to dismantle the program than they think, just because of some things are in place. We know that the Affordable Care Act has positively affected a lot of folks, and you don't want to necessarily take that away from them unless you have something that will replace it. So and I know you and I have been talking about it for as long as, well, 4 or 5 years now, 3 years, 4 years.
Well, a couple of things. One is, and this is my perception, that the Affordable Care Act has kept some businesses from growing, because businesses that have had fewer than 50 full-time equivalent employees have been reluctant to take on employees, because then they would be under the employer mandate and all that entails. So the cost was prohibitive for some companies. Not that small businesses don't want to provide health coverage, but they don't want to have to necessarily do it in the way that the government has dictated for applicable large employers, 50 or more. So that's one thing, and that should obviously, the government shouldn't be in a position to dictate, to kind of do that, to kind of say, if you grow, we're going to punish you. It should be like, if you grow, we should reward you. All right, so that's one thing. That what I alluded to earlier in terms of legislation, in December, the end of 2016, there was the 21st Century Cures Act, and as part of that, there was a measure that we in small business have been fighting for a while. And just to give you a little background and not get too technical here, what many small business owners have been doing for years and years, even before the Affordable Care Act and since the Affordable Care Act, is allowing their employees to get their own individual coverage and then reimbursing them for it. And a couple of years ago, the IRS said, this kind of reimbursement arrangement is not an approved group health plan. It's a group health plan, and it does, and because it's a group health plan, it falls short. And so you could be subject to a $100 per day per employee penalty. A small business freaked out. The IRS said, okay, we'll give you relief through the end of June of 2015. And since then, they've been quiet, and nobody knew what the impact of that would be. Well, the new law extends the relief through the end of 2016. So if small business owners have been doing this reimbursement, breathe easy, you're not going to be penalized. Going forward, if you do want to continue a kind of a reimbursement arrangement, it has to conform to a new law, which is a qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangement. Basically, it caps the amount that could be reimbursed and imposes notice requirements and certain other things. Essentially, it allows for the reimbursements to continue within the new structure. So that's a great thing. So starting 2017, we have this brand new reimbursement option. And in terms of the Affordable Care Act, one of the things that's been discussed repeatedly is the expansion of health savings accounts, which I'm a big fan of. And what a health savings account does is it combines a high deductible health plan, meaning that the consumer bears the first dollars, but the premiums are kind of low. And once you get to that, then your costs are covered. But you combine that with a savings account, health savings account, where the money goes in tax deductible, grows tax deferred, and comes out tax free to pay qualified medical expenses. So I think we're going to see, and this is just my guess on this, that we're going to see if they repeal and replace is going to include health savings accounts and perhaps expanded amounts because the IRS caps what can go in right now, and so we'll see.
And another important thing that a lot of folks never realized was that a health savings account can go to your heirs, and as long as it is used for the same qualified medical purposes, it remains tax-free.
Well, I think it goes to your spouse, and they can remain tax-free. I think if it goes to your heirs, yeah, it gets taxed.
Well, maybe I don't know, because I guess at the time I was considering it. I didn't have a spouse, but I had heirs. So, boy. Well, anyway, I just heard for the first time in many years, and perhaps you can give us an update on flexible savings accounts. I hadn't heard that expression used for 5 years, and all of a sudden last week or a couple of weeks ago.
Well, they haven't gone away. They're used by companies to allow. There are two types. One is for dependent care, and one is for medical. And they've continued to be used, and the amount that can go into a health or medical FSA, flexible spending arrangement, flexible spending account, is up a little. It's up $50 in 2017 to $2,600 for the year. The developments in the past several years with respect to medical FSAs, plans can allow for a limited amount of carryover. Remember, we've always talked about them as a use it or lose it plan. You can commit part of your compensation and you use pre-tax dollars to pay your out-of-pocket medical costs. If you don't use it up at the end of the year, you've lost it. Well, the plans can allow for a limited carryover, or they can allow a grace period, give you more time to use up what you committed for the prior year.
Well, it was a great thing. I don't think I've ever actually. I did live under an FSA for a certain period of my life before I did an HSA. Now with Medicare and now Medicare Advantage plan that I have, and I suppose there's a lot of baby boomers, solopreneurs like myself who are confronted with the same challenges that I see. I got to say, I was really happy with a Medicare Advantage plan that I purchased at I didn't even purchase it. It was just a transfer of funds to the carrier. And because I took an HMO, and it worked out perfectly for me because I wanted all my doctors to be in an HMO group that already existed. It didn't cost me anything new. And it's amazing. I had a surgery October 25th, and the surgery cost about $115,000. My out-of-pocket expense was $376.
Pretty good.
Yay!
Pretty good.
Well, it's I have a good broker. I have a good broker, a good professional that I have dealt with, and he said, David, with just understanding your particular needs and where you are in life, I recommend this plan. And I
will say that with the talk of repeal and replace, it's been said repeatedly that people under Medicare are not going to be, the benefits are not going to be taken away, that people who have Medicaid are going to continue to be covered. The benefits are not going to be taken away. I think there's a big scare campaign going on to make people frightened of change. And
it's funny you mention that.
I think the change is only going to be positive.
It's funny you mentioned that. Just today, and I teach a senior exercise class 5 days a week. And just today, I was reading to them the AARP official statement about Medicare and potentially could happen. And the differentiation between somebody who has Medicare now and somebody who may be getting it in 5 years. I mean, that's a big area right there. I think we can all agree that Medicare in and of itself is going to change. The Medicare that I live with is going to be certainly different than the Medicare that my sons live with, if in fact Medicare is around in those times. I'm more concerned, Barbara. I just read some data this week that says in 2030, the Social Security is going to be out of cash, and my monthly benefits are going to go down 30%. Now, can that happen?
Anything can happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but anything can happen.
Okay, I guess I've got a final question for you here, and as we've all been watching the people who have been nominated or actual appointments in the new presidential administration. Let me step back for a moment before I get to what I was going to say. What do you think? We now have a businessman, a non-politician who's going to be running the country. What are you excited about that? I'm
so excited because I think that the key issues have been identified. The key issues being Affordable Care Act, tax reform, and regulatory reform. And I know that for the small business owners that I talk to around the country, they need regulatory reform. They're dying under the regulations. You can't keep up with the regulations. You want to do a good job, and you want. I think there's been this perception created that somehow if you oppose regulations, it means that you want dirty water, dirty air, which is like ridiculous. We all want, but we have to come to terms with how do we approach everything that can't we, I think we can do a much better job of incentivizing businesses to do things green, for example, rather than punishing them for not doing it. I just think it's a different approach. Anyway, I'm very excited. I'm very pumped. I'm very pleased with the nomination of Linda McMahon to head up the SBA.
I can't believe you said that, because that was going to be my final question.
Well, she's a very smart lady, and I'm going to try to get her on my radio show once things settle down and she gets confirmed and everything. I'm really excited that she got.
It's funny because that was going to be my last question. What did you think about the new SBA? Now, does she have to go through?
Yeah, she does have. Yes, she does. She is one of the. But I don't see issues. She hasn't been identified as one of those people they're going to try to throw roadblocks in front of. And like I said, I'm kind of excited that she's going forward. I hope, though, that there are going to be changes through the SBA, because I think that to a large extent, they don't serve the micro business. They serve smaller businesses, but 500 employees are still under the auspices of the SBA. And when we think of small business, we're thinking many times of micro businesses with 8 employees or 20 employees. And so I look forward to having the SBA give more attention to the micro businesses.
Well, when Linda and Vince started, the World Wrestling Federation wasn't called that.
No, it was
at that time.
That's right.
They had 18 employees.
I know, and shortly they went to hundreds of employees, and mostly from the business end. He was the marketing person, but from the business end, that was her doing.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say it. My understanding has always been that she's been the brains behind the organization.
Well, she's been the business person behind. He has been the marketing person without question.
Well, I'm equally excited about that one, and I'll be watching that one very, very closely. And of course, over that, well, you have connections. I mean, you've been asked by the SBA to testify or stuff, or haven't you done some things in Washington with them?
No, I write a monthly blog for the SBA. I've been doing that for many, many years. So I write for the SBA every
Well,
month.
then how can Linda McMahon say no to you then? Well, Barbara, once again, I'm sorry that this conversation that you and I usually have is in November, but I was in no shape to do
I'm
this
glad you're back to full speed ahead.
I am, and I have some very well defined business objectives, and I haven't done that really I mean, they've been real loose for the past couple of years, but I've got some well defined ones. And I'm going to do something I've never done in my 45 plus years as an entrepreneur. I've got a business idea. It's testing out very well the concept, not how I'm executing. I'm learning more and more about the execution. But my business objective is to build a business that I can sell. And I've never done that before. You know, we just kind of do our thing and it goes where it goes. But so I'll be constantly, you know, keen on cash flow and will somebody pay for that cash flow and this, that, and the other. But I'm really, and it has to do with healthcare and the fact that we are in such a transition right now with where healthcare is going to be going, where it's come and where it's going. I think makes my business idea concept even stronger. So I'm really excited about that.
Good luck,
Barbara. Once again, thank you so much for being Barbara, for being so generous and sharing your time.
Well, I hope people will go to my website, barbaraweltman.com, and sign up for my idea of the day, my newsletter, and see my books. And
I suppose that both of those ventures are growing on a daily, monthly, weekly basis.
Sure thing.
Good. Well, you know that I'm always promoting them and talking about them because you've had a really positive impact on my small business thinking, and I want to thank you for that. And looking forward to having our 2000 small business taxes 2018 discussion in November of this year. Last 2 Novembers, I've been recovering from surgeries in the last 2 years in November. So hopefully we'll be able to work through that this year.
Good.
And thank you again. And
let's all hope for a prosperous and healthy new year.
Lots. And to our folks that are watching this on YouTube, please let me know what you think about this discussion. If you have a particular question that you have of Barbara, we can create a new stream just to deal with those questions. She'd be more than happy to answer them. And most go out and buy this book. Or you don't even have to go out anymore. Order it on Amazon.com. I promise you, I guarantee you that it will be the best $20 investment that you make in your small business. Because, well, let's end our discussion. I'm just going to open up the book like I love to do, and I'm going to read on that page something or mention something on that page, and then you tell me. I want the author to really get into it. Okay, I'm on page 291. I want to have a page where you've got a case study. I love your case studies and your example. 285, taxes and interest, deductible taxes. An S corporation on a calendar year using the cash basis method pays the state franchise fee for 2016 in March in 2017. You are so good at reminding people in your daily email, and for no other reason, read your email of what taxes are due. Make sure you get them in because Barbara doesn't want to see you paying a penalty. Correct?
Correct.
The payment is deductible on the S Corporation's 2017 income tax return, not in its 2016 return. Thank you for that great information. Barbara, have a great year, and look forward to reading and maybe. Oh, I do want to mention one last thing before we go. In 2015, and I'm talking more to the audience, you know about this. In 2015, I did a video book. It had about 30 chapters in it. I handpicked 4 people, one on strategy, one on marketing and sales, 2 guys in technology, and 1 individual on small business money matters. And chapter 4 of my video book was an HOA that I did with you back in 2015. So we'll post that out there again and get it going, because many of the things, if they want updates to what we're talking about, here's how they get the updates, right?
Exactly. Thank
Barbara
you.
Weltman, thank you, and have a great year, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.